Hello, everyone. You're listening to episode 1 of Intersections in Public Service, the Weldon Cooper Center's monthly podcast that takes a look at some of the most pressing issues facing our community, how public servants of all kinds are trying to address them, and what you can do to help. I'm your host, Ben Fisher, and today we're going to take a look at how public servants are addressing affordable housing, which is an issue getting increasingly more attention nationwide. In the United States, low-income renter households make up a little over a quarter of the total renter population, with about 11.2 million total households. But recent studies conducted by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition showed a total of only 7.5 million renter homes available nationwide, meaning there's a massive housing shortage for low-income individuals. This problem is especially pronounced here in Central Virginia, where rent prices have risen at triple the rate of household income, resulting in a housing shortage even worse than the housing bubble a decade ago. And this is due to a variety of factors, including gentrification of college towns and complicated zoning laws. But importantly, the effects of it have left many Central Virginia communities struggling.
The effects are the facts that folks don't have places to live. Number one. Number two, when I say folks, men, women, children. If you're focused on, again, that basic human need, I need shelter, and you have children, and of course these children, think about the children that have to go to school, and they need to have clothing, they need to have certain things, and so funds aren't going towards that kind of, it's going towards trying to find a place to live. And so the effects, I mean, it trickles down. Folks living outside in the elements. Now we're talking about a health issue. Now folks are ending up in the emergency rooms.
That's Antonio Rice, the Charlottesville Salvation Army's Director of Development. He's seen the faces of the housing crisis firsthand. So I sat down with him for an interview about what the Salvation Army has been doing to help.
What we do at the Salvation Army is that we feed people, we secure, I should say, or provide the basic human needs. And so, food, shelter, clothing. And so when folks come to us, they're at the end of their rope for the most part. And they come to us in lots of different ways. So it might be, hey, our house burned down and we have no place to go. Or, gosh, that last paycheck didn't come through. Or, I can't handle the abuse anymore, and so I need a safe haven. Or my sister kicked me off her couch, and I need a place to stay. A lot of our folks have jobs. They don't make enough to either find a place to live, and so they come to us, and we provide those basic human services for them.
One of the services that you provide is emergency housing, correct?
Yes.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about this housing crisis that's been going on and what have been sort of the effects of that as you've seen.
I mean, so what the effects is homelessness. I mean, people living on the streets. And so, we consider ourselves the safety net. And so, there's no reason for folks to have to live in their car. Or have to, so you have to really define homelessness. What does it mean? There's lots of different definitions. And so, having to live, still continue to live with your parents, to live with a relative, there's not enough affordable housing for these folks to make the kind of salary you would need to be able to afford the kind of house that you would want to live in. And so for us at the Salvation Army, we have a 56-bed shelter. We do have some apartments, and nine apartments that we have as well, and that's most certainly not enough. I mean, there's a waiting list for folks to come to us, and so crisis, yeah, that's probably a good word in regards to having people having to live out of their cars and live on the street. And so again, we're there to help those folks get back on their feet. And a lot of times it's like, gosh, I need 30 days or I need 60 days. Let me build up my bank account so I can then put a down payment, put the first month rent down and the last month rent to be able to get back out. I mean, ultimately, we don't we can't have people live at the Salvation Army. That's not what we're set up for. It's an emergency shelter. And so I know there's lots of partners out there, a lot of folks who are addressing this issue. And Salvation Army are the ones that kind of helps those who can't make it and who fall through the nets. We're there to catch them.
Okay, so can you walk me through what happens when somebody comes and checks into the Salvation Army?
We check them in. We make sure that they have a safe place, a warm bed, 3 square meals, and clothing. We give folks vouchers. And so typically when people show up at our shelter, I don't want to say typically, a large part, it's the clothes on their back. They don't have anything. And so we provide all of that. We provide, clothing with vouchers. We have a family store. And so we, the wonderful donations we get from folks who donate items, clothing items and household items and things of that nature. And then we have a soup kitchen that provided last year close to 60,000 meals. And so that's 3 square meals. That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Nights of shelter provided, it was close to 20,000 nights provided in terms of shelter. And so again, it's not a place that you go to stay. It's a place that you stay to get on your feet. And so given that, we encourage folks, it's not a day shelter. So every day you have to go out and find work if you don't have a job. And if you don't have a job, we help you get one. If that's helping you, working with other nonprofits in the area, there's like over 700. We work with those folks to help people, get jobs, write resumes, whatever it might take for those folks to kind of get back on their feet and then move through our system, our processes, and then into a place of their own. Here's just a misnomer. I want you to understand, and folks listening to understand, is the fact that the folks out there holding the signs, those aren't our clients. Those aren't our guests. And so for several reasons. Now, they could be, if they want to put this sign down and figure out a way to, find work, we can help you do that. If you want to better yourself, then we're there to help you. And so what we're here for basically is to help people get back on their feet and, work themselves to self-sufficiency. And so, again, we don't want people staying in our shelter. We don't. We want you out, because if you're out of our shelter, that means that you're out on your own. And so you're required every day. So you can't hang out and play video games and watch TV all day. You're required to help yourself. And we're there to lead you every step of the way. And so we like to think we don't leave anybody behind. You come to our shelter and require our services, we're going to help you. And so that's our goal, is to just make sure that folks are moving towards self-sufficiency. Typical stay is 30 days. However, you can stay longer if you're continuing making progress. However, if you're not, then it's 30 days, because we got somebody else in the pipeline who's looking for 30 days of relief. And so that's what we're there for.
Okay. And you mentioned that the Salvation Army of Charlottesville has provided over 20,000 nights of emergency housing stay. Why do you think so many people in Charlottesville need emergency housing?
Well, I think it answers itself. And so again, a great question. I think it's because there really isn't any place to go. We are the only place in town that really kind of offers this. There's Potcham and there's the Haven. Ours is shelters are just a little different. And so I just think that explains the need that's out there, that where folks, they don't have any place to go. It's expensive to live here in Charlottesville. It takes a lot to get your own house and to maintain it and to keep it. And so therefore our numbers are just that high. I mean, it's just that simple.
These efforts seem to be working. The number of people in Central Virginia who needed to use emergency housing each night decreased 30% from last year, despite a 10% increase in the total number of people using it over the same period. Better housing services are reducing the time people are spending looking for long-term housing, but things could be even better. Enter Tom Guterbock, the Weldon Cooper Center's Director of Survey Research, who recently launched a new project, Be Heard CVA.
Be Heard CVA is a regional survey panel for the Charlottesville area. We sign up people who agree to take surveys with us, and then in return they get some small incentives, but most importantly, they get to have their voices heard in important issues that face our region.
I spoke with Tom about how Be Heard could help manage the housing crisis facing Central Virginia today. When did this all start?
Well, we're in the middle of recruiting now. We've been thinking about this for several years, and then just in the last year, we've really picked up some speed. We got some support from the university for the costs of recruiting people and publicizing. And this last fall, we worked on what should we call it, how should we publicize it, what should we say, and we have several hundred people already signed up and are hoping to have enough to start doing surveys in just a month or two from now.
What is the goal of Be Heard CVA?
Well, this is a vehicle for community engagement in our region. And so in the bigger picture, as we all know, we've had some very difficult times of division in this region after the events of a couple of years ago in August 2017. And this is a way for all of us to have our voices heard in a way that lets everyone have a voice and also reaches a consensus or find out where we agree on different topics. This is a vehicle for local community groups, nonprofits, and local government agencies to do surveys more quickly and less expensively than they have in the past. It's gotten really difficult to do surveys in the traditional way where you cold call people and say, "Hi, do you want to do a survey?" People don't answer their phones. And as a result, the cost has gone up and up and up to the point where it's really out of reach for, except for the very large local governments, it's out of reach for places even like Charlottesville or Albemarle. So the goal is to have a panel set up so that local nonprofits, government agencies, community organizations can do a survey of the people of our region, a valid survey, less expensively, more efficiently, more quickly, and get the information they need to make Charlottesville and its region a better place.
What kinds of surveys will Be Heard be conducting?
For example, you might do a needs assessment. What do people need, or what do they want, or what would work, what wouldn't work? Another possibility is that you do before and after assessments of some initiative. We want people to stop locking their dogs in hot cars. So we first ask people about that, and then we run some ads and public service announcements and programs about it, and then we take another survey to see if there's been a change. So you can use this vehicle to measure your progress of your program.
How do you go about taking those surveys?
Well, thanks for asking that. This is not just an internet panel. A lot of panels like this, you have to be on the internet to do it. We're also providing the option of doing surveys by telephone. And that's very important because there is an important digital divide in our society. Now, it's true that probably 80% of people in our region have some kind of access to internet, but there's some who do not. For various reasons, some parts of these counties don't even have signal for where you can connect, but also economic reasons, and older people are less likely to be connected. So some people will do surveys by phone, some will do them on the internet. We will send out invitations. The invitations go out by email. They can go by text, or we can invite people by a phone call, and then you can do the survey, as I said, in one of two ways, either on the web or by phone.
So people sign up, and then later those people get invited to specific surveys?
That's exactly right. And they can, when you sign up, we ask you some questions. So everyone has a profile so we know some essentials about each person, gender, which county you live in, things like that, basic demographics. And that allows us to build then a scientific sample based on what kind of people we invite to do the survey.
How do you make sure you get a good sample if people are electing to do it?
Ben, that's a great question, and we've been asked that by many people. there are two things that distinguish various panels that have been done around the country and internationally. One is, how do you recruit people? And the other one is, how do you allow them to take surveys? As I mentioned, our panel allows people to do surveys by phone and by internet. That allows us to include people who might otherwise be excluded. A second thing is that because we have a profile on each person, we can be intentional about how we build the sample. So it may be that the people who volunteer, more of them are highly educated, or more of them live in Charlottesville, or some other problem that doesn't reflect the full population. But when we go out and send out invitations, we can correct that to some extent. Another way that we go about making sure our sample is representative is that we don't just rely on mailing out and phoning people. We also go out in person to neighborhood festivals, to local areas, wherever people gather. Could be the high school football game, could be the Festival of Cultures, and we hand out leaflets and really encourage people to sign up. And that way we can get a broader outreach to all segments of the community. In the end, it's probably more accurate to do what we call full probability sampling, but that's so much more expensive that for many people, what we offer with the panel will be well suited to their research needs and give them access to data that they just couldn't get any other way.
What are you personally hoping to accomplish with Be Heard?
My biggest hope is that the Cooper Center and the Center for Survey Research can reestablish the relationships that we used to have with these local agencies. When surveys were less expensive to do and easier to get people to cooperate, we were doing surveys for some of these local entities. We were doing them by phone for a while. We had a regional survey called the Jefferson Area Community Survey that was done by phone. We did that for a few years, but frankly, it wasn't viable financially, so we had to stop. And I'm really excited about the possibility of using the magic of survey methods so that more of the citizens, the groups in our area, can have access to real data for decision-making and for improving life in our region.
Can you think of any ways that Be Heard could help or influence the goals of the Salvation Army?
Well, I think an organization like the Salvation Army that's interested in affordable housing and other things other local problems, can use survey information in various ways. For example, you could find out how well known certain programs are in the area. You could assess need. You could get updated information. The census does ask people how much they spend for housing and how much income they have. And we usually consider if you spend more than 30% of income on your housing and utilities that you're overburdened with housing costs. So you could ask those questions on Be Heard as well and get more localized estimates of where the housing burden is greatest in our region. You can also use it for assessment over time. If you're doing some kind of intervention or information program, see if you're having an effect. If over a 1-year period, does people's knowledge of your programs or of solutions change?
How can Be Heard help the overall problem of affordable housing?
Well, this is an issue that interests a lot of different agencies, not just the Salvation Army. So one thing we've thought about is that we could try to work with several agencies or government groups that are interested in it to create a survey or set of surveys that are on the theme of housing and housing need. And so perhaps this would be a way for more than one agency to benefit from information gathering. In the end, however, let's face it, we're just talking about asking people questions and getting their answers, and that's as far as we can go. We're not building houses, we're not handing out subsidies, we're not taking applications, but it's for that larger collective need for scientific information where Be Heard can really come in. I think one other place where this can help is that this is a real problem in our area, but people aren't exactly sure of how far the problem goes or how to solve it. And as with any issue, people have opinions and political agendas surrounding it too. And what I've found over the years that surveys do is a good survey puts limits on the debate because you put facts before people. And so someone who's making outrageous claims there's no problem at all, or everybody's got a problem. They no longer can say that because the data are clear that, well, this is where the problem is, this is how big it is, and maybe this will work, maybe this won't work. So I think where the survey information helps is to ground the debate in some facts that are from our local area, not from some other place.
How can our listeners get involved?
The first thing is we'd love for people to sign up. Just go to our website, which is beheardcva.org, and you can fill out a few questions and become a participant in our surveys. We also have what we call street teams. We have groups of people, some of them are young, some not so young, who go out to community festivals and other areas to help us recruit. You know, you asked earlier, Ben, about how do we get a representative sample? And one of the way we do that is actively doing outreach to neighborhoods and community events where people gather so that we can reach beyond just the typical civic volunteer. Well, we need personable people who are outgoing, who enjoy being with others, who could help us promote CVA. Thirdly, work with your organization and think about what questions you would like to ask people in this region to help you with making the place better for everyone.
I also asked Antonio how you can get involved with the Salvation Army.
Perfect example was, was it 2 nights ago? No, it was actually last week. The UVA defensive linemen showed up in our soup kitchen, and they were in complete service. So from serving the food to cleaning up, to taking trays away, to refilling water, to you name it, they were there in service. We go by the terms of we are our brother's keeper. And so, you can help us help us being our brother's keeper just by small little things, little donations or big donations. I tell you what, here's a great way, ringing the bell at the kettle. 2 hours at the kettle, as when you ring the bell, folks come by and put their quarters in and their dollars in. 2 hours will provide 20 meals or 5 nights of shelter. So volunteer, get your groups together and get your organizations together. Say, I'm going to go down and ring the bell for the Salvation Army. You'll be making a huge difference. And so it's little things like that. I get my kids involved. I mean, immediately when I took the job, they were like, okay, this is what your dad's doing. This is what you're doing. It's giving back, man. It's just that simple. Again, we always need monetary donations. That kind of keeps the lights on, and that's what I'm required to do. But I think it's fun, man. I think that you see your fellow man, and they're down on their luck. Maybe they're down on their luck, and to be able to provide, and a lot of times, let me even back up a little bit. Sometimes it's less the dollars. It's more so you should maybe show up at our soup kitchen, and now you're having a conversation with somebody you typically don't have a conversation with, and they get to learn about your day. They know about their day. And so it gives them a sense of normalcy, and it absolutely fills the heart. It does. And so our guest, and we call them guests, again, maybe down on their luck in this particular moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're anything less than anybody else. They just need a hand, a leg up, I should say. And so, how our community or your listeners can help us, it's first and foremost, we are completely transparent. I believe every dollar that comes in, like 86 cents, 87 cents, goes directly to a particular program. And so we're fiscally, and we're good stewards of folks' kindness and generous donations. But I like to invite folks to come on down and see what we're doing. And so this is a formal invitation. You call Antonio Rice, 434-295-4058. Call me up, say, hey, I want to come down and see what you guys are doing. Or, hey, I want to get my kids involved in what you guys are doing. The Covenant School are wonderful, wonderful contributors to us. And when I say contributors, they bring their kids out, and then they help us paint and help us do beautification projects, things of that nature. So there's lots of ways to help us, but I want you to come down and take a look. Come on down, take a look, and see how you might want to get involved. I mean, I can tell you we got all these things. Like, I don't want to do that. Heck, I tell you what, we give all these wonderful donations at our family store. Sometimes we need help sorting through that stuff and getting it out on the floor. There's lots of ways to help. Come on down and take a look.
Thanks everybody so much for listening to this episode of Intersections in Public Service. I really hope you enjoyed it. To hear more, you can always visit the Weldon Cooper website. You can see us on YouTube, or you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, if you learned something from it, or if it inspired you in some way to serve your community, make sure to subscribe so you can stay updated about future episodes, and to share this podcast with your friends. Thanks again for listening, and remember, anybody can be a public servant.